Hello, my name is Michael Gauci, and I teach ACG 5505, Governmental and Non-for-Profit Accounting, here for the School of Accounting Executive Programs at Florida Atlantic University. So my background, I've been a CPA since the 90s, and throughout that time I spent a good chunk of time actually working as an accounting manager for the state of Florida, as well as many years working as the internal audit director for the city of Boca Raton. So from that experience, I bring a lot of real-life stories into the classroom. So in this course, we're actually going to study accounting and financial reporting for states and local governments. We typically don't get into the federal government too much, but we concentrate on accounting and financial reporting for the state and local governments. So we're talking about cities, counties, special government districts like maybe a water district, as well, of course, the state. And we're going to study the GASB standards. GASB stands for Governmental Accounting Standards Board. So they issue accounting pronouncements specifically for state and local governments. So we are going to study the different GASB pronouncements and utilize them, and we will practice utilizing the GASB pronouncements by preparing accounting journal entries and, of course, preparing financial statements. You are going to see that for state and local governments, they prepare financial statements for individual funds, and I'll get into that in a minute, as well as the government-wide financial statements. The government-wide financial statement is typically like a consolidated financial statement for the entire government, which is important, but it is also important for the readers of state and local government financial statements to see individual funds. And basically you're going to see that governments get involved with different activities, and different activities are going to be reported in an individual fund. As an example, construction, and we all know that governments like to go through construction projects. They are going to prepare their own financial statements in what's called a capital projects fund. Government issues bonds a lot of times to get involved with these projects. So there's a lot of issues with issuing the bonds, paying back the bonds, principal and interest. We would use a separate fund for that, typically called a debt service fund. Grant monies come in. We would use a special revenue fund for the grant activities. And another example would be governments tend to actually operate business type activities, I will call them. They're not for-profit activities, but they're business type activities. Examples, a city might run a bus system or a subway system, or maybe a water utility, or a golf course. All right, these are examples of where the revenue comes in from additional user fees as opposed to taxes, which pretty much fund a good chunk of the other part of the government. So these are called enterprises, and we use an enterprise fund for those. So just to give you a little idea, we'll study the accounting for the individual funds, prepare financial statements for the individual funds, as well as the government-wide financial statements. At the end of the course, probably the last 25% of the course, we are going to turn our attention to nonprofit organizations. And nonprofit organizations come in two flavors. We have public nonprofits and we have private nonprofits. So your private nonprofits would be, like as an example, the Red Cross or the American Cancer Society, or your local church, your local synagogue, your local place of worship, or the FICPA as an example. And so we will see the accounting for these private nonprofits. Private nonprofits use FASB standards, accounting pronouncements. In addition to these private nonprofits, we also have public nonprofits. Public nonprofits tend to be in the college and university industry, as well as healthcare organizations like hospitals. So as an example, Florida Atlantic University is part of the state of Florida. It's actually a public nonprofit, and we would use GASB standards. I will actually show you FAU's financial statements, and we will study them, as well as other colleges and universities. We also have private nonprofit universities. We could take a look at those as well. Same thing on the healthcare side, typically hospitals, private nonprofit or a public nonprofit. So this course is going to be very good for your growth as a CPA and really understanding what goes on in your community, the issues facing your local municipality, your county. In addition to that, you are going to be prepared for this subject matter on the FAR section of the CPA exam. Thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to seeing you in class.